Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry about the music fail there for a second. I was going to press output N monitoring and I accidentally pressed only monitoring. So I could hear everything, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
For anyone wanting to know, that was Hungarian Rhapsody. I think that's List or something. I couldn't exactly remember what I set up for last week when we had all our trouble. So, but I think I recognized it as that. It was a bit of an excerpt. Yes, it was a boomer moment.
I think it was. Oh dear. Yes. Wrong button.
Yeah.
But we're back. It's good. I was confused there for a second because I had the entropy was playing in my ear at the same time. And I was like, there's some other tab somewhere that's playing links back at me, and there's two links and it's confusing.
Yeah. That
Hello,
tends to happen.
everyone.
Yeah. We are finally back, and hopefully there won't be any buffering issues. Everything seems
touch wood.
Yeah.
Yep.
I am having a minimal of tabs open, so my computer shouldn't crash again, and I've cleaned it up, so yeah, we should be good. So yeah, tonight we have Ogres for you.
Yes, we do. For anyone who doesn't know, my name's Katrina. I'm from the UK, and my co-host is Lynx.
Yeah,
who is from Norway.
Norway. I completely forgot to introduce myself. How rude, but we Norwegians tend to be rude, I hear, so.
I haven't met enough of you to comment.
Well, we're not exactly rude per se, but compared to the English, we are maybe a bit rude. We don't say please to everything, for example. So, you know, it's things that have been drummed into me before school trips over there. Remember to say please. And from friends I visited, remember to say please. And then I forget to say please. So, yeah, rude Norwegian.
Well, I think more important than please is saying sorry literally every time you bump into someone, even if it happened to be their fault.
Well, Norwegians do that as well, so.
Oh, okay. That is one thing we have in common then.
Yeah.
Good. How's everyone doing?
Yeah, I hope everyone is fine. I'm a bit tired today, so I hope my brain will function all the way through. Luna has been in a fight and had to go to the vet, and that resulted in me not getting any sleep. And she has to have a collar on, so I had to sleep with her tonight on the bed to make sure that she didn't take it off, and that of course resulted in waking up every 2 or 3 hours, so I'm a bit tired. It's like having a baby.
Yeah. A permanent furry baby.
No.
It's basically a cat.
I don't think so.
Well, that's more like a dog, isn't it?
Maybe. I don't really see animals as fur babies. As long as they are well. When they get sick or injured, it's a different matter. It's the only time I start babying them. So,
that's true.
Yeah. Otherwise, they are animals.
We got to draw boundaries, really. And that is a problem. People using pets as children substitutes.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I recognize that I I might be inclined to that tendency fairly early on, so I've consciously worked to go away from that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Still though, puppies are cute.
Yeah, good to see you again. I agree.
Yeah.
We are on DLive today. So it's streaming on my end at least. So
yeah.
Should be just to hop over.
The only person I'm seeing on DLive is just a wall of DD.
Yeah. There's only 7 over there right now. Gottmate Uns, thank you for the diamond.
Thank you.
That is
thank you very
good
much.
of you.
We're also on Entropy as well.
Yeah. The dancing penguin is there.
I paused the tab on Entropy to me, but I presume that doesn't affect it for anyone else.
No. You're not streaming anyway, so So why can't I be there?
DLive as well. You can see us on DLive, presumably.
Yeah.
You sent a cute gift for Darkling. That's nice.
Yeah.
Wanted to throw some money at you. Okay. Nice.
Thank you. So I linked to that other channel and you can find it. Hey Nolles, good to see you.
Yeah. Drop the link, Government Ones.
Yeah, I'll put that over in the YouTube chat as well. So that people can find you.
Nice.
Though I do hope people stay with us tonight. Of course.
Yeah. I have my DLive paused, but I played it just then. It seemed to be playing for me. So we'll see how things are. But we got lots of people on YouTube. Hello, Jewel, DD, JD, Generic,
David, I agree.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, good to see you all. Okay, there is that channel. I will follow that on my own with my own DLive afterwards, and I'll do that with Horse as well. So yeah, if Katrina can put that link in YouTube, that would be great.
Yep, will do. I'll put the link to Son of Mad's channel in YouTube.
Yeah, I am. He's streaming about a war documentary, trying to learn about that ordeal. So that sounds very interesting. Yeah, definitely something to check out in the something to check out in the replay. So yeah, could you please get one more thumb up on YouTube so that we get past 13? Maybe I've been reading a bit too many stories or something, but 13, unlucky number. I see 13. So, is someone impressed? Yeah. Yeah.
and unusually colored skin, and they have a large appetite. They seem to crop up a bit in folklore all over the world, really. I've heard them compared to the Jutna of Norse mythology. Do you agree with that comparison, Lynx?
Yeah, there's definitely similarities in there. But what I would say in general when it comes to ogres is that there seem to be a mix of several creatures. In that they do have things in common with the Jotnar, and also with giants and cannibals, and in general what seems to be large monsters, humanoids. You did find a reference to ogre in the Eddas, but when I checked the Norse and Scandinavian translations of that, it was translated into Thurs.
Yes, that was. And just for some explanation, some context, that was Skirnir's mole, where Skirnir convinces the giantess Gerd to marry Freyr. And in the translation that I have, anyway, it threatens that she'll have a three-headed ogre for a husband if she doesn't want to have Freyr. And my translation's by Caroline Larrington. I think that was her surname. But yeah, other translations in English that I've found use giant and not ogre. So it is disputed how to translate that word.
Yeah, because
in the text.
Yeah, Thurs is generally, as far as I know, a rune. I haven't had time to find if there is more translations of that. Maybe I'll have to check out Jackson Crawford or something. Perhaps ask him a question about it.
Yeah, he's good for that stuff.
Yeah,
he's good for that stuff.
Yeah.
Would Jackson Crawford interact with us? I don't know. I don't know where he stands on certain things.
Well, first of all, I doubt he would know who I am. Second of all, I do have a normie account as well, so I could use that.
Normie account.
Yeah.
I actually have a normie account myself. So yeah. Yeah, but I've heard a lot of things about the origin of ogres, and mostly I've heard that they derived from the Etruscan god Orcus, who fed on human flesh. And the earliest attestation of it is in Chrétien de Troyes. Chrétien de Troyes? I have no idea how to pronounce French. Late 12th century verse romance Perceval et Comtesse de Graal. And Ogres. Ogres in that rhyme might refer to the ogres referred to in the history of the kings of Britain by Geoffrey of Monmouth, which we have looked at before. I think that we referred to them as giants that time, maybe, but I think it's talking about the inhabitants of Britain prior to human settlement and the story of Brutus of Troy. So those are being regarded as ogres.
Yeah, that is definitely my impression. Thank you, I agree, for celebrating 5 months of sick. And Ferocious Chihuahua, yeah, Ferocious Chihuahua is hosting us with one viewer, so thank you very much. Always good to see you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hope that gets sorted out.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't think you will coming one day and they have changed your name.
Oh dear.
I don't know if you have had that happen. They have become ninja warriors overnight. Thank you for the time. I agree. It is working. It's good to see you again. I was wondering where you were the other day, so definitely good to have you back. Yeah.
Fictional feminist.
It can definitely be seem like that at times.
She does. It does kind of look like one.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. It's got that vibe.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Searching for ogre pictures was actually quite difficult because all that comes up is, Shrek and similar shows or films, and
so much Shrek.
Yeah, and I do prefer older art. Not only because of copyright issues, but we do try to get this linked to earlier times. So that one was actually drawn up in, I think it was, the artist died in the first half of the 1900s. So it's about 100 years old. So, but for all we know, he could have been before his time, seeing what what was coming.
He could have been indeed.
Yeah, maybe in particular if he saw had if it was after that feminist who died at a racing track, who's recently got a statue, one of the suffragettes. Basically, she ran out into the field while the horses were racing in the last lap. And she got hit by the king's horse and died a few days later in hospital. The horse and the jockey was okay. They raced a few weeks later, so that is always good. But she seems to have been somewhat on the crazier side. Let's just say that.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
it does seems to have attracted a certain kind of people.
It does seem to. Oh, hello, Ragnar.
Yeah, hey.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Well, we are half an hour in thereabouts. Do you reckon we should have a story and maybe talk a little bit more about the origin of ogres?
Yeah.
And such like.
Yeah,
have a story.
The story kind and not the female kind. Okay, I have just noted that one down as Hop, so you have to give the full title.
Oh, this one's called Hop o' My Thumb.
Okay, let's roll the story.
Hop o' My Thumb by Charles Perrault. A very poor couple once lived in a village near a wood where they used to work. But as they had a family of 7 little children, all boys, they could hardly manage to get food enough. The least boy was so tiny that he was called Hop o' My Thumb, but though small, he was very clever. One night, when all the children were lying in bed, their parents were crying sadly because there was no food in the house, and Hop o' My Thumb was in quite a fright when he heard them say that they would take all their little ones into the wood the next day and leave them, that they might not see them die of hunger. So he got up very early in the morning and filled his pockets with pebbles. And when he and his brothers went into the wood, he dropped the stones one by one as he walked along, and by this means, when it was getting dark, they found the way home again. But the next time the poor couple took their children to the wood, the little fellow could not get pebbles, for he had been locked up all night, and had nothing but a few crumbs to drop on the road, and these the birds soon ate up. The wind howled and the rain fell, and the poor children thought that they should all perish, but still kept moving, in the hope of getting help. Hop o' My Thumb kept a good lookout, and at last he saw a light not far off. So he cheered up his brothers, and on they went, till they reached a large house, from which the light was seen to come. After they had knocked on the door, a pleasant-looking dame opened it, and Hop o' My Thumb told her how they had lost their way in the wood, and were very tired and hungry. And as soon as she heard their story, she told them to go away as fast as they could, because her husband, who was an ogre, was very fond of eating children, and would soon be home. But they all cried so much and begged so hard for food and shelter that at last she let them in. Hop o' My Thumb, fearing mischief, could not sleep, so he got out of bed, and on looking about, saw that the ogre's daughters all had crowns on their heads. And then he changed these for the nightcaps worn by his brothers and himself, and when the ogre came in the dark, with his great knife to kill the poor boys, he cut the throats of his own children instead. At the peep of day, Hop o' My Thumb awoke his brothers, and made them quickly get away with him from the house. After they were gone, the ogre, grinning savagely, went up to the bedroom. But he became almost mad when he found he had killed his own daughters, and the little boys were all gone. The ogre now put on his magic boots, with which he could take 7 leagues at a stride, and set off in pursuit of the poor runaway boys. But Hop o' My Thumb had made them all hide in a hole under a rock, and by the ogre came back, tired and in a very bad humour, and threw himself on this very rock to sleep. A kind fairy now appeared to the children, and gave Hop o' My Thumb a nut to crack, as soon as he should reach the ogre's house. But the fairy told him he must first take off the ogre's boots, and send his brothers home, and afterwards put on the magic boots himself, and make the best of his way to the ogre's house. Hop o' My Thumb, with the help of the kind fairy, soon removed the ogre's 7-league boots while he was asleep, and put them on his own little legs. But as they were magic boots, they fitted him as well as the ogre, just, indeed, as if they had been made for him. He now called his brothers out of the hole in the rock, and put them in the way to reach home. He then strode on his magic boots till he came to the ogre's house, and on cracking the nut, he found a paper with these words: "Go unto the ogre's door, these words speak, and nothing more. Ogress, ogre cannot come. Great key give to Hop o' My Thumb." When the ogre's wife first saw Hop o' My Thumb, she was ready to kill him for having caused the death of her daughters, but no sooner did he utter the magic words, "Ogress, ogre cannot come. Great key give to Hop o' My Thumb," than she gave him the key of the gold chest, and told him to take as much as he chose. When he saw the great heap of money in the chest, he thought, like a good subject, he should like to help the king to some of the treasure, and so he made the ogre's wife give him as many bags full of gold as he could take away in several journeys. While Hop o' My Thumb was so well employed in taking away the wicked ogre's treasure, that monster was still sleeping, after his useless journey in search of the poor children on the rock, where Hopper my Thumb had left him. When he awoke and found his magic boots gone, and his limbs so stiff that he could not move, he made a hideous noise, which aroused all the wild beasts of the forest, and they all flew at him in great fury, and gored him to death. Hopper my Thumb now went to court, laden with his hard-won spoil, and paid his respects to the king, who did him the favour to accept of his rich gifts, and rewarded him by making him his head forester, and his father and brothers foresters under him, and whenever the king went out hunting, the little fellow used to ride by his side on a pretty, high-spirited little horse, with rich velvet clothing. The ogre's kind-hearted wife was also invited to court, and created Duchess of Dololola, and she shared the rest of her husband's wealth with Hopper my Thumb, who was greatly beloved by all for his spirit and good sense. Indeed, his Majesty at last dubbed him a knight, and made him his chief privy councillor, saying that as he had always been so shrewd and clever in helping his brothers, he must surely be able to give him good advice whenever he might need it.
Okay, so that was Hopper my Thumb. An interesting story. Definitely had some similarities to other stories we've read.
It most certainly does, yeah. I mean, certainly it is often always the youngest of the brothers. The youngest or the smallest that seems to have this destiny quite a lot of the time. And we definitely have some of the same elements of trickery and such like that we often get in these tales.
Yeah,
For sure.
Definitely when they come up with someone who is larger and stronger than them. You can't use brute force, but you have to use your wits as well. So I think that is one of the themes coming in such stories, that it's not enough to just have physical power, but at times you have to be clever as well.
Yeah, true. I mean, there's also sort of a note of destiny and of chosenness with that, because the fairy decides to help Hopper my Thumb.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It definitely reminded me of Jack the Giant Killer, with one of the giants he killed. The one he was staying the night at when he was on his way to Wales.
Oh, yes.
The giant then come in at night to beat him to death, and he had overheard that because the giant was silly enough to think aloud. So,
Yes.
maybe not the best thing to do if your plan should work.
No, definitely don't talk about your plans to murder someone in the vicinity of said someone.
No.
It's really gonna lose you the advantage of surprise, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. Just a note really about Charles Perrault. I think he was the one who really ensured that the word ogre came into wider usage. Him and Marie Catherine Jumel de Bonneville. Bonneville, maybe. Again, it's French. And the first appearance of the word ogre in Perrault's work occurred in his histories of Contes du Temps Passé.
When did he live?
He was from like 1628 to 1703. So it's been around for a while, the word ogre.
The word ogre first appears in the 1300s, but maybe not in that wide of a use.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's the one who's spread it around as a widely used word. But the first example of a female ogre being referred to as an ogress is found in Giambattista Basile's version of Sleeping Beauty, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles Perrault took several of Giambattista Basile's works as well. So he's one of the people who's quite responsible for the proliferation of the ogre folk stories. I thought I was about to sneeze then, but I didn't.
They do tend to come at...
Had to go on mute, or I was like, I hope I'm not going to accidentally sneeze in this microphone, because that would be death for headphone users.
Yeah. Like the time I had the cough and I only had time to mute the stream, but not you. So you basically jumped in the ceiling.
Oh dear.
These things happen.
Yeah. But yeah. The 7 league boots are an interesting feature of that one. I think I've heard them referred to in other tales as well.
That is a very well-known pair of boots in Norway. Yeah, it does appear in our stories as well, so I do think that is a theme that is found across Europe.
What sort of role does the 7 league boots generally sort of play in your stories then?
Well, the best known story with them are of Askeladden. He is a boy that is highly featured in our stories, and this particular story, he tends to meet people with extraordinary abilities or with extraordinary things. So there's the 7 mile boots, and one guy who is always hungry. So he's literally eating rocks.
Oh, okay.
And one guy who could blow winds through his mouth, not the other end. But basically, one hell of a pair of lungs. And, one who was always thirsty, so he could basically drink up a river and stuff like that. So, generally, supernatural abilities and objects.
Yeah. I'm kind of like, there are, I guess, thinking about the theme of the stories, there are 2 ogres in this story, and the female ogre is, she's more ambiguous than her husband. She is redeemed. Definitely. She warns Hopper my thumb about the danger. She lets them stay. She's understandably very grieved by the killing of her daughters. I kind of wonder what it symbolizes that Hopper my thumb is able to control the ogress with the magic words. I guess that they do seem to represent primal sort of forces.
It could be the anima. the negative side of Animar. If we're going down the Jungian route.
Yeah, okay. That's an interesting idea. I don't know about as much about anima and animus as I ought to do.
Neither do I. But it seems to be if they are connected to the primal powers, then it would be the female side of that, and that is the opposite. So it's integrating the negative side of the opposite within yourself.
That is very true.
In this instance, so
yeah, that is one thing that it could definitely symbolize. And also, I feel like when you have a primal giant woman or ogre woman, that's it's giving me Yorth-like sort of associations, I guess. It's giving me earth giantess sort of associations there. In that Hopper my Thumb has demonstrated that he can use superior, I guess, human rational reasoning, that he can think his way out of a problem with these primal forces, and therefore he controls them. That's one sort of idea that I had about it.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I was looking through the symbolism of ogres and what they've been used to symbolize. They have been used to symbolize everything, really, from devouring victims in a sexual sense, a seducer, but they've also been used to symbolize dictators and stuff. Weirdly, people are trying to connect ogres to Nazis. I have no idea, but in several articles about ogres, people are saying that people have used ogres to symbolize dictators, and they've used ogres to talk about Nazis.
Well, if there is something negative, then they do have to, in one way or another, connect that to the Nazis, it seems. So,
yeah.
Obsession.
It's just funny how many things have to be linked to it.
It's an obsession.
Days.
Yeah, it's an obsession with them.
Yeah.
It seems. And
absolute complete obsession.
Yeah, good evening, Fronal. It's good to see you. And good evening, Bear Hall Pooch. Good to see you too.
Oh, lol, I agree. Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, Blue Marin, or is it Martin? I'm a bit too far away from my screen right now to be able to watch properly. Thank you for the 2 lemons, and thank you, Dammy, for the 9 ice creams, and hope you have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry, I'm just shifting around on my chair. You might have heard that.
Slightly, but it wasn't overpowering everything, so it's fine.
Good. Yeah. I like particularly at the end of that Hopper my Thumb story. I don't know if that's originally, but Hopper my Thumb gets all this gold and then thinks, oh, well, I must go and give this to the king. Immediately. And please be sure to pay proper taxes on any treasure that you find.
Yeah, better make sure the proles don't get ideas above their station, perhaps.
Indeed. Go and give it to the king and you'll get to be his chief huntsman.
Yeah. Or
Which, considering that he could have had a bunch of gold, seems like a bit of a raw deal.
Yeah, or perhaps it's an example of pathological altruism.
Perhaps it is.
Oh, I have all this money. I think I'll give them to someone who already have a lot of money. You know, I don't have need for it. So yeah.
Maybe he was just like, I don't really have a safe place to keep all this gold. You know what? If I can't secure this gold in an adequate fashion, I'm just gonna get robbed, aren't I?
Yeah.
Who's got vaults? The king.
Yeah. I do
So
think
it could be quite pragmatic, I think, maybe.
maybe. I do suspect I would make some other choices than give it to the king.
Yeah.
But that's me.
I mean, if I ever found a large pile of gold, I would I would tragically lose it in a boating accident. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. He's like a really crap version of Robin Hood. That is quite true.
No, only kidding, HMRC. I would declare it and pay tax on it. Obviously.
Yeah.
because to not do so would be illegal.
Definitely.
Oh dear. But yes. Top of my phone there. Caring very much about proper management of money.
Yeah. I have seen quite a few stories that involves a guy called Tom.
I haven't seen many other than Hop on My Thumb. There are a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to take care of Luna for a second. Just talk.
Fair enough. Yeah. Luna's been fighting folks, or at least we think she has. Don't really know how Luna got injured. But yeah. She has a collar around her neck. She doesn't like it. So, hopefully, she'll be able to get that off soon.
Yeah, I hope so. It's just at times.
F in the chat for Lynx's cat, please.
She's not completely effed. She had a bite on one of her paws, and when she tries to get her collar off, I try to distract her with petting her or something. So I just have to reach over right now. She's next to me on the couch.
I agree. Thinks Hop on My Thumb is like a really crap version of Robin Hood. Yeah.
Thank you, chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were at the vets yesterday. So
F-ish and F adjacent.
Yeah. When she came in and couldn't stand on one of her legs, I at first thought it was broken, but nothing is broken other than a claw. So that isn't a huge injury. It's just very inconvenient for a few days. So hopefully she doesn't have to remove the claw entirely.
Hopefully. Fingers
Hopefully.
crossed for that.
Yeah. Color and
Yeah.
medicine should work.
Well. Yeah.
F-E line. Yeah, you could,
F-E-line.
yeah, you could say that, Jewel.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think, what were we having next? Which story were we having next?
The next one is properly called The Ogre. It's an Italian one. It's a bit different ogre in that story, so I think that should be interesting. Definitely seem like more of a symbolic story in many ways. So yeah, we can play that now if people want a second story at the moment, and I can get Luna under control.
Yes. Let's have another story.
Okay. The Ogre. There lived, once upon a time in the land of Marigliano, a poor woman called Marcella, who had 6 pretty daughters, all as upright as young fir trees, and an only son called Antonio, who was so simple as to almost be an idiot. Hardly a day passed without his mother saying to him, "What are you doing, you useless creature? If you weren't too stupid to look after yourself, I would order that you leave the house and never to let me see your face again." Every day the youth committed some fresh piece of folly, till at last Marcella, losing all patience, gave him a good beating, which so startled Antonio that he took to his heels and never stopped running till it was dark and the stars were shining in the heavens. He wandered on for some time, not knowing where to go, and at last he came to a cave, at the mouth of which sat an ogre uglier than anything you can conceive. He had a huge head and a wrinkled brow, eyebrows that met, squinting eyes, a flat broad nose, and a great gash of a mouth from which 2 huge tusks stuck out. His skin was hairy, his arms enormous, his legs like sword blades, and his feet as flat as ducks. In short, he was the most hideous and laughable object in the world. But Antonio, who with all his faults was no coward, and was moreover a very civil-spoken lad, took off his hat and said, "Good day, sir. I hope you are pretty well. Could you kindly tell me how far it is from here to the place where I wish to go?" When the ogre heard this extraordinary question, he burst out laughing, and as he liked the youth's polite manner, he said to him, "Will you enter my service?" "What wages do you give?" replied Antonio. "If you serve me faithfully," returned the ogre, "I'll be bound you'll get enough wages to satisfy you." So the bargain was struck, and Antonio agreed to become the ogre's servant. He was very well treated in every way, and he had little or no work to do, with the result that in a few days he became as fat as a quail, as round as a barrel, as red as a lobster, and as impudent as a bantam cock. But after 2 years, the lad got weary of this idle life, and longed desperately to visit his home again. The ogre, who could see into his heart and knew how unhappy he was, said to him one day, "My dear Antonio, I know how much you long to see your mother and sisters again, and because I love you as the apple of my eye, I am willing to allow you to go home for a visit. Therefore, take this donkey so that you may not have to go on foot. But see that you never say Bricklebrit to him, for if you do, you'll be sure to regret it." Antonio took the beast without as much as saying thank you, and jumping on its back, he rode away in great haste. But he hadn't gone 200 yards when he dismounted and called out, "Bricklebrit." No sooner had he pronounced the word than the donkey opened its mouth and poured forth rubies, emeralds, diamonds and pearls as big as walnuts. Antonio gazed in amazement at the sight of such wealth, and joyfully filling a huge sack with the precious stones, he mounted the donkey again and rode on till he came to an inn. Here he got down, and going straight to the landlord, he said to him, "My good man, I must ask you to stable this donkey for me. Be sure ye give the poor beast plenty of oats and hay. But beware of saying the word Bricklebit to him, for if you do, I can promise you will regret it. Take this heavy sack too, and put it carefully away for me." The landlord, who was no fool, on receiving this strange warning and seeing the precious stones sparkling through the canvas of the sack, was most anxious to see what would happen if he used the forbidden word. So he gave Antonio an excellent dinner with a bottle of old wine and prepared a comfortable bed for him. As soon as he saw the poor simpleton close his eyes and had heard his lusty snores, he hurried to the stables and said to the donkey, "Bricklebit." And the animal, as usual, poured out any number of precious stones. When the landlord saw all these treasures, he longed to get possession of so valuable an animal, and determined to steal the donkey from his foolish guest. As soon as it was light next morning, Antonio awoke, and having rubbed his eyes and stretched himself about 100 times, he called to the landlord and said to him, "Come here, my friend, and produce your bill, for short reckonings make long friends." When Antonio had paid his account, he went to the stables and took out his donkey, as he thought, and fastening a sack of gravel, which the landlord had substituted for his precious stones, on the creature's back, he set out for his home. No sooner had he arrived there than he called out, "Mother, come quickly, and bring tablecloths and sheets with you, and spread them out on the ground, and you will soon see what wonderful treasures I have brought you." His mother hurried into the house, and opening the linen chest where she kept her daughter's wedding outfits, she took out tablecloths and sheets made of the finest linen, and spread them flat and smooth on the ground. Antonio placed the donkey on them and called out, "Bricklebit." But this time he met with no success, for the donkey took no more notice of the magic word than he would have done if a lyre had been twanged in his ear. 2, 3, and 4 times did Antonio pronounce Bricklebit, but all in vain, and he might as well have spoken to the wind. Disgusted and furious with the poor creature, he seized a thick stick and began to beat it so hard that he nearly broke every bone in its body. The miserable donkey was so distracted at such treatment that, far from pouring out precious stones, it only tore and dirtied all the fine linen. When poor Marcella saw her tablecloths and sheets being destroyed, and instead of becoming rich, she had only been made a fool of, she seized another stick and belabored Antonio so unmercifully with it that he fled before her, and never stopped till he reached the ogre's cave. When his master saw the lad returning in such a sorry plight, he understood at once what had happened to him, and making no bones about the matter, he told Antonio what a fool he had been to allow himself to be so imposed upon by the landlord, and to let the worthless animal be palmed off on him instead of his magic donkey. Antonio listened humbly to the ogre's words, and vowed solemnly that he would never act so foolishly again. And so a year passed, and once more Antonio was overcome by a fit of homesickness, and felt a great longing to see his own people again. Now the ogre, although he was so hideous to look upon, had a very kind heart, and when he saw how restless and unhappy Antonio was, he at once gave him leave to go home on a visit. At parting he gave him a beautiful tablecloth and said, "Give this to your mother, but see that you don't lose it as you lost the donkey. Until you are safely in your own house, beware of saying tablecloth open and tablecloth shut. If you do, the misfortune be on your own head, for I've given you fair warning." Antonio set out on his journey, but hardly had he got out of sight of the cave than he laid the tablecloth on the ground and said, "Tablecloth open." In an instant the tablecloth unfolded itself, and disclosed a whole mass of precious stones and other treasures. When Antonio perceived this, he said, tablecloth shut, and continued on his journey. He came to the same inn again, and calling the landlord to him, he told him to put the tablecloth carefully away, and whatever he did, not to say tablecloth open or tablecloth shut to it. The landlord, who was a regular rogue, answered, "Just leave it to me. I will look after it as if it were my own." After he had given Antonio plenty to eat and drink, and had provided him with a comfortable bed, he went straight to the tablecloth and said, "Tablecloth open." It opened at once, and displayed such costly treasures that the landlord made up his mind on the spot to steal it. When Antonio awoke next morning, the host handed him over a tablecloth exactly like his own, and carrying it carefully over his arm, the foolish youth went straight to his mother's house and said, "Now we shall be rich beyond the dreams of avarice, and need never go about in rags again, or lack the best of food." With these words he spread the tablecloth on the ground and said, "Tablecloth open." But he might repeat the injunction as often as he pleased. It was only a waste of breath, for nothing happened. When Antonio saw this, he turned to his mother and said, "That old scoundrel of a landlord has done me once more, but he will live to repent it, for if ever I enter his inn again, I will make him suffer for the loss of my donkey and the other treasures he has robbed me of." Marcella was in such a rage over her fresh disappointment that she could not restrain her impatience, and turning on Antonio, she abused him soundly and told him to get out of her sight at once, for she would never acknowledge him as a son of hers again. The poor boy was very depressed by her words, and slunk back to his master like a dog with his tail between his legs. When the ogre saw him, he guessed at once what had happened. He gave Antonio a good scolding and said, "I don't know what prevents me smashing your head in, you useless ne'er-do-well. You blurt everything out, and your long tongue never ceases wagging for a moment. If you had remained silent in the inn, this misfortune would never have overtaken you, so you have only yourself to blame for your present suffering." Antonio listened to his master's words in silence, looking for all the world like a whipped dog. When he had been 3 more years in the ogre's service, he had another bad fit of homesickness, and longed very much to see his mother and sisters again. So he asked for permission to go home on a visit, and it was at once granted to him. Before he set out on his journey, the ogre presented him with a beautifully carved stick and said, "Take this stick as a remembrance of me, but beware of saying, 'Rise up, stick,' and 'Lie down, stick,' for if you do, I can only say I wouldn't be in your shoes for something." Antonio took the stick and said, "Don't be in the least alarmed. I'm not such a fool as you think, and know better than most people what 2 and 2 make." "I'm glad to hear it," replied the ogre, "but words are women, deeds are men. You have heard what I said, and forewarned is forearmed." This time Antonio thanked his master warmly for all his kindness, and started on his homeward journey in great spirits. But he had not gone half a mile when he said, "Rise up, stick." The words were hardly out of his mouth when the stick rose and began to rain down blows on poor Anthony's back with such lightning-like rapidity that he had hardly strength to call out, "Lie down, stick." But as soon as he uttered the word, the stick lay down and ceased beating his back black and blue. Although he had learned a lesson at some cost to himself, Antonio was full of joy, for he saw a way now of revenging himself on the wicked landlord. Once more he arrived at the inn, and was received in the most friendly and hospitable manner by his host. Antonio greeted him cordially and said, "My friend, will you kindly take care of this stick for me? But whatever you do, don't say 'Rise up, stick.' If you do, you will be sorry for it, and you needn't expect any sympathy from me." The landlord, thinking he was coming in for a 3rd piece of good fortune, gave Antonio an excellent supper, and after he had seen him comfortably to bed, he ran to the stick, and calling to his wife to come and see the fun, he lost no time in pronouncing the words, "Rise up, stick." The moment he spoke, the stick jumped up and beat the landlord so unmercifully that he and his wife ran screaming to Antonio, and, waking him up, pleading for mercy. When Antonio saw how successful this trick had been, he said, I refuse to help you unless you give me all that you have stolen from me. Otherwise, you will be beaten to death. The landlord, who felt himself at death's door already, cried out, Take back your property, only release me from this terrible stick. And with these words he ordered the donkey, the tablecloth, and other treasures to be restored to the rightful owner. As soon as Antonio had recovered his belongings, he said, Stick, lie down, and it stopped beating the landlord at once. Then he took his donkey and tablecloth and arrived safely at his home with them. This time the magic words had the desired effect, and the donkey and tablecloth provided the family with treasures untold. Antonio very soon married off his sister, made his mother rich for life, and they all lived happily ever after. So, that was the ogre, and as you heard, it wasn't really the usual kind of ogres, which I found very interesting. You usually do think of them as, big monsters and everything, and in this one, he was more of a helper, which I really found a nice change.
Yeah, he certainly does sort of defy the usual archetype. And so it's quite, that is quite an unusual story, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering what it means that this time the ogre is a helper.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that shows that they can be kind of ambiguous.
Yeah, I would
sometimes.
think so. For me, it's, I'm sorry, I have Luna in my lap and she is not lying completely still, so I can't interact with chats right now, in writing.
Yeah.
This story seems very much to me to be more of an inner journey for I am blanking out on his name.
I think it was Antonio, wasn't it?
Yeah, Antonio. Because he lives with the ogre in a cave, so it's basically the underworld. And I do find it odd that he doesn't really have any choice. Basically not much to do, and is still rewarded. So I feel that's pointing to an inner journey more than an outer one. And then he is tested at several points in maturity, learning to be a bit more shrewd than he is and not blabbering about everything.
That's quite true.
For a donkey, how many people are going to say brittle bit to it? It's not a
many.
word.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's not something you could think of saying to a donkey.
No, and it's not a word in daily use, so to speak. So,
No.
Why point that out? It's literally, it's on the sign, don't press the button. And the first thing you want to do is press the button.
Press the button. Yeah. Now, whatever you do, you mustn't say brittle bit to this donkey. Well, it's probably not a word that would have ever cropped up in general conversation around the donkey, but okay.
Exactly. So, yeah, that was quite funny.
Yeah. And also, who says rise up to a stick? Who tells a stick to do anything?
Well, that is something that could come up in conversation, to be fair. And the same with the napkin. that is a bit more usual. So I do see a bit of more of a continuity there with something that could prop up, going from one word that definitely wouldn't come up in a conversation to something that possibly can. So that would show his gained maturity, and he did need a good beating to get there in the end.
Good beating.
Yeah.
Enabled him to grow up.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Maybe it was more of a metaphorical beating. Maybe not everyone has to be physically beaten in order to grow up.
Yeah.
Some people maybe do require it.
Some might, but only in dire need, of course. Definitely not a proponent of physical punishment. So, but that is, one thing with fairy tales and everything. It is teaching children metaphorical language, and I definitely think this is a very metaphorical story. Because in so many tales, we have the hero that has to use his wits to defeat quite a few people, and then we have quite a few with the complete opposite, where you have the complete idiot that bumbles around but somehow manages to get through whatever the journey is.
True.
So this one was very interesting in that it shows a progression, I think.
Yeah. Oh, we had a couple of lemons in the chat from Blue Martin and Dee Dee. Thank you there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Suggestions. A good old-fashioned stick sandwich. Wooden spoons. He did it to himself.
Yeah.
Don't jump off a cliff.
I will try to avoid that. And Harmony Krieg says that he's tried telling the computer to do stuff, but it hasn't worked. And I have the same experience.
Yes. The computer does pretty much always the opposite of what you want it to do. It will pick its moments to update. Oh, thank you, Dandami, for the ice creams.
Thank you. I will also say that beating your computer might not be the best idea.
No. I'm not sure that hit it with a stick, with a hammer, with anything really works with computers. I wouldn't advise it.
No, not like the old-fashioned TVs that if they didn't work properly, then give it a good thump on top or something, and then it would work.
Yeah. That's the problem with modern technology.
Yeah.
Can't hit it.
Yeah. Don't throw a computer off a cliff. I agree with that. Sometimes I have to basically sit on my hands not to throw it out the window.
And thank you very much for the diamond. I agree.
Yeah, thank you. People are very generous tonight.
Indeed, yes, they are. But yeah. We've gotten slightly sidetracked by what you definitely shouldn't do to a computer. Which includes throwing it off a cliff.
Yeah.
That's on the list of things you definitely shouldn't do. Hello and welcome to Bad IT Advice.
Yeah.
Stream.
What not to do with the computer stream? If you do have to throw it away, then
dispose of it responsibly.
Yeah, there's stuff in there we don't want to.
And maybe try and recycle the different components.
Yeah, if possible.
Grog, take computer and throw at rock. That is how I do feel sometimes, Nollis, yes.
Yeah, there's been a few times that I wish that my computer came with a computer guy that could take over the minute something goes wrong and I start to freak out. And stands behind my shoulder when I do stuff. Of course, not seeing what I'm doing or anything, but just ready to take over when need be. I haven't got anyone that has come with any computer or tablet or anything so far.
Get a computer for your computer. The computers use computers. If the computers can use computers, I think we're in trouble.
Yeah, then we might start to approach Skynet, and that might be something to avoid, in my opinion.
Yes. Wait, what does this mean, Nollis? Computer guy in inverted commas, I don't know what that means, Nollis.
Not quite sure either, but I'm not very techy, so it would be nice to have someone come along with the computer to fix every problem instead of having to call my dad or something.
Yeah, I feel you there.
Yeah.
Nixon Stratus said she wanted a computer with a computer guy, lol. Computer guy is maybe not the technically correct name for people who help to fix computers.
Maybe not, but I call them computer guys.
Computer guys. Everyone calls them the computer guys.
Same with... I'm sorry, I had to save my headphones from Luna. Literally at the end of the cord of my headset, so it's a bit difficult when Luna starts to shift her position. Yeah. The same with audio guy instead of audio technician, because it's usually a guy. So
it is.
Alternately, it's sound man.
If it was centuries ago, their last name would be computer guy. Yeah, that's true. If we still had occupation-based surname, computer guy would be a very common one.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Or technician of various kinds.
Is computer guy code for husband? I mean, with my relationship, yes, computer guy is code for my man. Yeah. If I have a tech problem, I'm gonna tell him. The computer's doing a thing, can you fix it, please? And then I get really... if he says no, I'm like, what do you mean? You're the one who knows what the computers do.
Well, I will keep my private life off stream, but I will say in general, most men I've known and been in relationships with have known way more about computers than I do. Um, so it might be or it might not be.
Guys, code for the golden one. Oh dear. Yeah.
I think I've only seen 2 or 3 streams with him. I don't have anything against him, it's just not my cup of tea. So it's definitely not a code word for him, for my part at least. I won't speak for Katrina.
No, not my cup of tea either. Not saying that he's a bad looking fella, but not personally my cup of tea. I'm back. What now, computer ogres? Yeah, something like that, Dee.
Something like that.
You didn't do nothing, Dee. It's fine.
Well, at least I haven't got an ogre into my computer, as far as I know. So, unlike certain other creatures who shall not be named. So, yeah.
Name. The good folk. Not gonna. Thank goodness we're not talking about them tonight.
No. I have put my foot down with that. I seem to have enough of them in my computer already, so I have to chase them out first.
Indeed,
So,
yes. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we should have another story, I think. It's getting on.
Yeah.
9:30 there.
Yeah, definitely starting to feel it right now. So we should move over to the last story of tonight. So that is called The Flea.
Yes, it is.
Okay, rolling story.
The Flea. Resolutions taken without thought bring disasters without remedy. He who behaves like a fool repents like a wise man, as happened to the King of High Hill, who through unexampled folly committed an act of madness, putting in jeopardy both his daughter and his honour. Once upon a time, the King of High Hill, being bitten by a flea, caught him by a wonderful feat of dexterity, and, seeing how handsome and stately he was, he had not the conscience to sentence him to death. So he put him into a bottle, and feeding him every day, the little animal grew at such a rate that at the end of 7 months it was necessary to shift his quarters, for he was grown bigger than a sheep. Then the king had him flayed and his skin dressed. Then he issued a proclamation that whoever could tell what this skin was should marry the princess. As soon as this decree was made known, the people flocked in crowds from all the ends of the world to try their luck. One said that it belonged to an ape, another to a lynx, a third to a crocodile, and, in short, some gave it to one animal and some to another. But they were all 100 miles from the truth, and not one hit the nail on the head. At last there came to this trial an ogre, who was the most ugly being in the world, the very sight of whom would make the boldest man tremble and quake with fear. But no sooner had he come and turned the skin around and smelt it, than he instantly guessed the truth, saying, "This skin belongs to the King of Fleas." Now the king saw that the ogre had hit the mark, and, not to break his word, he ordered his daughter, Porziella, to be called. Porziella had a face like milk and roses, and was such a miracle of beauty that you would never be tired of looking at her. And the king said to her, "My daughter, you know who I am. I cannot go back from my promise, whether a king or a beggar. My word is given. I must keep it, though my heart should break. Whoever would have imagined that this prize would have fallen to an ogre? But it never does to judge hastily. Have patience, then, and do not oppose your father, for my heart tells me that you will be happy, for rich treasures are often found inside a rough earthen jar." When Porziella heard this sad saying, her eyes grew dim, her face turned pale, her lips fell, her knees shook, and at last, bursting into tears, she said to her, poor Porziella, seeing herself thus caught in the net, with the face of a person condemned to death, with the heart of one whose head is lying between the axe and the block, took the hand of the ogre, who dragged her off, without any attendants, to the wood, where the trees made a palace for the meadow, to prevent its being discovered by the sun, and the brooks murmured, having knocked against the stones in the dark, while the wild beasts wandered where they liked without paying toll, and went safely through the thicket, whither no man ever came, unless he had lost his way. Upon this spot, which was as black as an unswept chimney, stood the ogre's house, ornamented all round with the bones of men whom he had devoured. Think but for a moment of the horror of it to the poor girl. Father, what crime have I committed that I should be punished thus? How have I ever behaved badly toward you, that I should be given to this monster? Is this, O father, the affection you bear to your own child? Is this the love you show to her whom you used to call the joy of your soul? Do you drive from your sight her who is the apple of your eye? O father, O cruel father, better had it been if my cradle had been a deathbed, since I lived to see this evil day." Porziella was going to say more, when the king, in a furious rage, exclaimed, "Stay your anger! Fair and softly, for appearances deceive. Is it for a girl to teach her father, forsooth? Have done, I say, for if I lay these hands upon you, I'll not leave a whole bone in your skin. Prithee, how long has a child hardly out of the nursery dared to oppose my will? Quick, then, I say, take his hand, and set off with him to his home this very instant. For I will not have that saucy face a minute longer in my sight." Poor Porziella, seeing herself thus caught in the net, with the face of a person condemned to death, with the heart of one whose head is lying between the axe and the block, took the hand of the ogre, who dragged her off, without any attendants, to the wood, where the trees made a palace for the meadow, to prevent its being discovered by the sun, and the brooks murmured, having knocked against the stones in the dark, while the wild beasts wandered where they liked without paying toll, and went safely through the thicket, whither no man ever came, unless he had lost his way. Upon this spot, which was as black as an unswept chimney, stood the ogre's house, ornamented all round with the bones of men whom he had devoured. Think but for a moment of the horror of it to the poor girl. But this was nothing at all in comparison to what was to come. Before dinner she had peas, and after dinner parched beans. Then the ogre went out to hunt and returned home laden with the quarters of men whom he had killed, saying, "Now, wife, you cannot complain that I don't take good care of you. Here is a fine store of eatables. Take and make merry, and love me well, for the sky will fall before I let you want for food." Poor Porziella could not endure this horrible sight, and turned her face away. But when the ogre saw this, he cried, "Ha! This is throwing sweetmeats before swine. Never mind. However, only have patience till tomorrow morning, for I have been invited to a wild boar hunt, and will bring you home a couple of boars, and we'll make a grand feast with our kinsfolk and celebrate the wedding." So saying, he went into the forest. Now, as Porziella stood weeping at the window, it chanced that an old woman passed by, who, being famished with hunger, begged for some food. "Ah, my good woman," said Porziella, "heaven knows I am in the power of an ogre, who brings me home nothing but the pieces of men he has killed. I pass the most miserable life possible, and yet I am the daughter of a king, and have been brought up in luxury." And so saying, she began to cry like a little girl who sees her bread and butter taken away from her. The old woman's heart was softened at this sight, and she said to Porziella, "Be of good heart, my pretty girl. Do not spoil your beauty with crying, for you have met with luck. I can help you to both saddle and trappings. Listen now, I have 7 sons, who, you see, are 7 giants. Mace, Nardo, Cola, Micco, Petrullo, Ascadio, and Cessone, who have more virtues than rosemary, especially Mace, for every time he lays his ear to the ground, he hears all that is passing within 30 miles around. Nardo, every time he washes his hands, he makes a great sea of soap suds. Every time Cola throws a little bit of iron on the ground, he makes a field of sharp razors. Whenever Micco flings down a little stick, a tangled wood springs up. If Petrullo lets fall a drop of water, it makes a terrible river. When Ascadio wishes a strong tower to spring up, he only has to throw a stone. And Cessone shoots so straight with the crossbow that he can hit a hen's eye a mile off. Now, with the help of my sons, who are all courteous and friendly, and who will all take compassion on your condition, I will contrive to free you from the claws of the ogre." "No time better than now," replied Porziella, "for that evil shadow of a husband of mine has gone out and will not return until this evening, and we shall have time to slip off and run away." "It cannot be this evening," replied the old woman, "for I live a long way off, but I promise you that tomorrow morning I and my sons will come all together and help you out of your trouble." So saying, the old woman departed, and Porziella went to rest with a light heart and slept soundly all night. But as soon as the birds began to cry, "Long live the sun!" lo and behold, there was the old woman with her 7 children, and, placing Porziella in the midst of them, they proceeded towards the city. But they had not gone above half a mile when Mace put his ear to the ground and cried, "Hallo! Have care! Here's the fox! The ogre is come home. He has missed his wife, and is hastening after us with his cap under his arm." No sooner did Nardo hear that than he washed his hands and made a sea of soap suds, and when the ogre came and saw all of the suds, he ran home, and fetching a sack of bran, he strewed it about, working away and treading it down with his feet until at last he got over this obstacle, though with great difficulty. But Mace put his ear to the ground once more and exclaimed, "Look sharp, comrade, here he comes." Thereupon Cola flung a piece of iron on the ground, and immediately a field of razors sprang up. When the ogre saw the path stopped, he ran home again, and clad himself in iron from head to foot, and returned, and got over this peril. Then Mace, again putting his ear to the ground, cried, "Up, up, to arms! For see, here is the ogre coming at such a rate that he is actually flying." But Micco was ready with his little stick, and in an instant he caused a terrible wood to rise up, so thick that it was quite impenetrable. When the ogre came to this difficult pass, he laid hold of a Carrara knife that he wore at his side, and he began to cut down the poplars and oaks and pine trees and chestnut trees right and left, so that with 4 or 5 strokes he had the whole forest on the ground and got clear of it. Presently Mace, who kept his ears on the alert, like a hare, again raised his voice and cried, "Now we must be off, for the ogre is coming like the wind. Here he is at our heels." And as soon as Petrullo heard this, he took water from a little fountain, sprinkled it on the ground, and in a twinkling of an eye, a large river rose up on the spot. When the ogre saw this new obstacle, and that he could not make holes so fast as they found bungs to stop them, he stripped himself stark naked, and swam across to the other side of the river, with his clothes upon his head. Mace, who put his ear to every chink, heard the ogre coming, and exclaimed, "Alas, matters go ill with us now. I already hear the clatter of the ogre's heels. We must be on our guard, and ready to meet the storm, or else we are done for." "Never fear," said Ascadio. "I will soon settle this ugly ragamuffin." So saying, he flung a pebble on the ground, and instantly up rose a tower, in which they all took refuge without delay, and barred the door. But when the ogre came up and saw that they had got into so safe a place, he ran home, got a vine-dresser's ladder, and carried it back on his shoulder to the tower. Now Mace, who kept his ears hanging down, heard at a distance the approach of the ogre, and cried, "We are now at the butt end of the candle of hope. Cessone is our one last resource, for the ogre is coming back in terrible fury. Alas, how my heart beats, for I foresee an evil day." "You coward," answered Cessone, "trust to me, and I will hit him with a ball." As Cessone was speaking, the ogre came, planted his ladder, and began to climb. But Cessone, taking aim at him, shot out one of his eyes and laid him at full length on the ground, like a pear dropped from a tree. Then he went out of the tower and cut off the ogre's head with a big knife he carried about with him, just as if it had been a new-made cheese. Thereupon they took the head with great joy to the king, who rejoiced at the recovery of his daughter, for he had repented 100 times at having given her to an ogre. And not many days after, Porziella was married to a handsome prince, and the 7 sons and their mother who had delivered her from such a wretched life were rewarded with great riches.
Okay, so just took a bit for my microphone to kick in there, so I got a bit confused.
Yes. Maybe it did take a little bit of time to get the audio back there, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but so yeah, this one, a king loses his daughter because he he designed a competition that he thought no one would win.
Yeah.
So I guess it's fundamentally, if we're looking at the message about contained in the kings, it's arrogance, I guess.
Yeah, I would say so. Still, I do get why he might not have thought anyone would recognize a huge flea. You know, they're usually tiny.
A huge flea skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are usually very tiny, so I'm not sure if microscopes had been invented by that time or how many had access to them, so I do see it in that sense. But
that's true.
Usually there's someone who knows it, so
Yeah. And I guess it establishes ogres as maybe slightly more intelligent, or at least, you know, more in touch with nature. And because I think the ogre is able to know the flea skin from its smell.
Yeah.
I think that might be it.
That might be it.
And so, I don't know. It's interesting. We've got a king who's become arrogant and sort of bet that he's got knowledge that nobody else has, but then something which is a representation of primal nature really comes and is able to beat him. And he loses his daughter, who's his chance at lineage. He has to give her up because his word is his bond. And I don't suppose there's any question of him breaking his word, because back in those days your word was very important. We often see that in European culture.
Yeah, and
that when you've given your word to do something, then you do it.
Yeah, and in particular with the king. You know, the king is supposed to be the example. So if the king breaks the word, it would be worse than others. He sort of loses his legitimate claim to the throne.
Yeah, exactly. And so the princess is sent to live with this being who brings her back cannibalized bits of, well, her father's own subjects.
Yeah.
To eat.
Lovely.
Which is, I guess, quite, I don't know, maybe symbolic of how her father's loss of control over the situation has compromised his nation as well.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the symbolism there.
Yeah.
And then she gets help from this old woman figure with the 7 sons. And again, 7 seems to be a number that crops up sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've had 7 about before. It does generally seem to be regarded as quite a magical number.
Yeah, it's related to God and the divine. I think within Christianity, 5 is human, 6 is the devil, and 7 is God.
Yeah, there's that association. And as far as we know as well, the Anglo-Saxons had 7 realms within the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 sort of dimensions, states of being, whatever you want to think of them as. I think the Norse was 9. We don't know if we're just missing 2 for the Anglo-Saxon, or whether they genuinely conceptualized it differently. But that's another thing that 7 reminds me of, definitely.
Yeah, it seems like when it comes to numbers, many focus on 3, 6, and 9. Robert Stafford did a good video on that.
Yeah. No, it is interesting how this maths crops up again and again. Yeah, it is interesting how arrogance is a running theme in the European mythology and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So is she an Irish Catholic?
Maybe.
I don't think so, actually. This is an Italian story by Giambattista Basile, I think. But Italians are very Catholic.
Yeah, most Italians tend to be Catholic, definitively in the 1500s. Um, the Hungarians had 7 original tribes, says Nolles. That is very interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh.
It's definitely
cool.
one of the numbers I'd like to look more closely at.
Yeah, you quite often get stories about 7 somethings.
We have the 7th father in the house. So it's basically 7 generations of men living under the same roof.
Yeah. And then each of these sons has a different attribute. Most of them seem defensive, but only the one with an actual attack sort of attributes and skill can defeat the ogre.
Yeah.
As well. Which I think is definitely ultimately pointing to you cannot just keep running from and defending against evil. You have to actually tackle it head on.
At a certain point you have to face it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's quite European as well, because it's the valuing of that martial skill above the other ones, which is definitely a feature, I think, in a lot of these tales. They either seem to value intelligence or bravery.
Yeah.
Or both. So it can really vary. You can win by superior wit or by superior courage.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the ones where it's superior courage, I think.
Continuing the theme of the king being overcome with hubris, I do find it interesting that it's his daughter who, what should we say, regains the honor by getting home again.
Yeah, she does. And I guess she had to be... Well, she was kind of humbled before she came home. Like, she had to eat the nasty food described and stuff like that. And she got desperate enough to ask a peasant woman. Well, she had to show kindness towards the peasant woman as well.
Yeah, that is something we see with the female characters, in particular high-born characters. As it seems like it can be pointed out that they can be a bit arrogant. I'm sorry.
Oh, so let's see what's going on in the chat here.
Just have to help Luna get down from my lap.
Yeah. Nolles thinks the ogre represents unintended consequences.
Yeah, that is an interesting take.
I also like.
Yeah.
But yeah, the princesses, the ones of high birth, they're often tested with these tests of kindness, or giving service of some sort.
Which is sort of fair, because they often are brought up in a very rich environment and, very high status. So then it is easy to get a bit full of yourself. So by going through, through something where they have to learn humility and give and not just take, and actually give of themselves and not just something valuable, a valuable object. That seems to be something that crops up again and again. That it has to be from the heart.
That's true. Yeah, and she does. There's kind of element of trust as well. I mean, she has to wait until morning and believe that they're actually coming back to get her. So that's another thing when it comes to the feminine journey as well. I guess. No, I forgot what I was going to say. Completely mind blanked.
That can happen from time to time.
Well, Jules Citizen had to go to bed.
Well, have a good night, Jill. And see you later.
Yeah. But I think yeah. I think it's definitely, it doesn't seem to quite fit a stereotypical feminine hero's journey. Because of course you have the help from the sons, whose powers I wasn't quite sure what they symbolized. The ability to create a lot of soap studs being one.
Well, I do think we have to be a bit careful not to overanalyze it as well.
Yeah, it's true. Because I think it was just defensive powers versus the one offensive one.
Sometimes.
I don't think soap studs mean anything.
At times it's more of the theme, more than the specific objects or powers. That is more just for the sake of storytelling. So
I guess the overall lesson seems to be don't make promises that you don't want to keep.
Yeah.
Because they can have unintended repercussions for people you love, as well as yourself.
Yeah, that is themes that tends to pop up as well. You know, mean what you say and be true to your word.
And the old woman who came to rescue the daughter was someone who was true to her word.
Yeah.
She did exactly what she said she would.
And you know, it is difficult to trust someone when they go away because you don't know if they will come back.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I guess on the whole, the story is promoting honesty. I think. Or at least thinking about what you promise before you promise it.
Yeah, you know, think about what you say and do. Because
that seems to be a lot of these tales. Like, think before you do something.
Exercise.
Perhaps those who make promises they don't wish to keep are the more cowardly type. I don't know. I think with the king, it was hubris. Because he thinks he has absolutely nothing to fear. And then it turns out that actually no, someone knows more than he thinks they did.
Yeah, I do think hubris is often part of that. Unless, you know, it's a malicious character, then I'm sorry, I just have to shift one of Luna's bulbs. Just give me a few seconds.
Yeah. Link's cat. Cats do not care when you're streaming. Nope.
Sorry about that. She has trouble reaching her bowls with the colors, so
Has she got a
basically,
cone around
yeah.
her neck? Does she have the cone of shame?
Yeah, and it has to be at a certain length so that she can't clean herself and the wound. So, of course, that also interferes with her ability to eat and drink.
Yeah. And Norris makes a point here in the chat. Maybe it could have been about holding on to the daughter. He didn't want to give his daughter away, so he creates a task he thinks is impossible. And then, due to him being that overly possessive of her, could be representative of her going with entirely the wrong
Yeah,
man.
that could definitely also be it. I think we mostly see that with the female characters, you know, the mother.
Yeah, I think so. I guess. Yeah, there seems to be an element of greed there.
Or
I would say.
Maybe it's not greed per se, but the difficulty for a parent to let go of their children when they grow up. It reminds me of one of the stories we had not long ago with Prince Lindworm, when the queen considers which flower to eat. You know, she thinks if she has a son, he will maybe go out to war and never come back, and so she will lose him. But if she has a daughter, she will eventually be married off, and so they will lose her. So it's sort of a possessiveness of letting your children go when the time comes.
Yeah. Did I understand correctly that she was not married to any of the sons who saved her at the end? I don't think she was, no. No. Doesn't say anything about her getting married.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, she does come back. Maybe that indicates that if you stop being... Maybe that indicates that once you back off and you let your child experience the scary outside world, they might actually start appreciating home anyway.
Yeah. And also that, you know, your parents are your parents, and unless you've done something very bad, then they will come back. You know, you're not losing them forever when they go. So
that is true.
We did, Nolus did ask earlier where the picture is from, because he thinks it's familiar. Do you know?
I don't know where the picture is from. I found it from the internet, but I can try and look at where it's from. It is interesting, yes, that usually the savior does get the girl. In this case, no.
Well, it is good with stories that don't always follow every single aspect that stories usually take, I think. A bit of variation is good.
Yeah. These sons, to me, they seem not to represent... They seem not to be human beings. Like, they definitely represent some sort of supernatural intervention. Yeah. They seem a bit like gods, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Political, good to see you. Good morning. That would probably make it Australia or that part of the world. It is evening here. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would be the complete. Huh. We might have an Australian. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool indeed.
We have had a few visits from people of that part of the world, either that or Southeast Asia. So,
upside down kangaroo land.
Yeah, everyone walks around on their head and everything. Yeah.
So I'm told. That is all our stories for tonight, folks. I guess ogres are a lot more ambiguous than I originally thought.
Yeah,
they seem like they can both help and hinder. They're a bit like trolls in that respect.
Yeah, they do have similarities with trolls. I've only encountered the word ogre with connection to English-speaking folklore, or that was my impression, at least. So I did think they were more of a separate entity than many of the others, but they seem to be somewhat of a mix. So that they might have the same origin way back in the day, but as time has gone on, it has developed differently.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just getting up on my tablet here, a point I was forgetting. And now I just have to look for that. Here it says, this is from mythology.net. The word ogre itself has its roots in the French language and is generally attributed to the Etruscan god Orcus. Although it's not certain that Orcus himself is the origin of these creatures, his brutish traits and cannibalistic tendencies were enough to make a connection that lasted from the 12th century up until modern day. The first of these connections is believed to have come from a romantic verse from Percival Il Comte de Grave, which was written by Chrétien de Troyes, and reads as follows. And it is written that he will come again to all the realms of the Logres, or Logres, known as the land of the Ogres, and destroy them with that lance. So, and that is Logre or Logre is thought to be King Arthur's realm. So, I did find that quite interesting. And also that they're not colored like humans, where it's mentioned their skin is either green or blue for the most part. So,
yeah. One thing that I found about ogres, which is interesting, which maybe I might leave people to contemplate with, is the fact that they really crop up all over the world. I didn't get to mention, but there's also Asian ogres as well. They can be funny colors as well, like blue, red, and yellow, with iron clubs. And villagers hold yearly ceremonies to drive away oni, as they call them, at the beginning of spring. And they throw soybeans outside their homes and shout something that translates to demons out, luck in.
Are they
So
trying
they
to
seem to be all
are they trying to
over the world.
soyify the ogres?
So have some soy. Go with
Changing
soy.
them into soy ogres.
You want to repel ogres?
Yeah.
Always have your soy. Throw some Soylent at them.
Drink your soy milk, ogre.
Don't expose me to that. It'll raise my estrogen levels and sabotage my
Yeah.
gains. Ogres are strictly keto.
Yeah.
Don't
They seem to have a very strict diet
Um,
of human flesh, so very keto.
But yeah, one of the explanations that people come up with for the fact that the archetype of ogres exists all around the world is that there may be an ancestral memory of Neanderthals, is what some people have theorized.
Yeah.
That there may be an ancestral memory of that extinct species of hominids that inhabited Europe and parts of Western Asia. And there's a paleoanthropologist called Juan Luis Asuega. I have no idea how to pronounce Spanish. He's theorized that Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons occupied the same area of Europe at the same time. And there's also a Finnish guy called Bjorn Curtin who's entertained that theory as well. Which is saying that trolls and ogres could be an ancestral memory of encounters with Neanderthals by Homo sapiens Cro-Magnon ancestors some 40,000 years ago. But I don't know how much of it that those two scholars get behind it, which I thought was a very interesting theory, that our collective memory goes that far back as Europeans or as Indo-Europeans. Because, of course, we have a bit of relation to certain parts of Asia.
I'm not really that surprised. Mind you, I don't really have all of the dates in my head and everything, but stories get passed down and survive. With the folk tales, the oldest known is thought to be 7,000 years old, and several other stories seem to be even older, with flood myths and everything. So, and they are from all over the world. So I'm not really that surprised by that. And I'm not going to start down the Neanderthal rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think I did read also somewhere that the word originates from Hungris. So ogres are Hungarian. Hungarian ogres.
Looking at you, Nollis.
Got a genuine ogre in the chat. Apparently.
Genuine ogre. That is a friend of the channel. That's not bad.
Yes. But yeah. I wonder who the goblins could represent in our collective memory. I wonder indeed. What's this about Etruscan tribes? Etruscans cropped up in the stream. Orca is an Etruscan tribe, I think. I don't know who the Etruscans are. Are they Celts? I think they might have been. I'm very bad at keeping track of
I know
names.
The word, but I really can't remember who they are off the top of my head. My mind is very tired now, so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, political is right. There is a small amount of Neanderthal in our DNA.
yeah,
actually.
that was the Neanderthal rabbit hole I wasn't going to mention, but I suppose I can leave you with a tidbit. On German TV some years back, when there were being genetic studies being done, and the whole we have Neanderthal DNA came out. There was some numbers that was shown on German TV. So I basically had to screen cap it, and it's been erased from the internet since, which is interesting. But the numbers say that, here we have, what is it, 2% Neanderthals or something. But the true numbers depends on population. So there are pockets which, according to those numbers, have up to 20% Neanderthal DNA. So that's basically a hybrid, and that is found in a certain area of the Middle East, and I will let people guess where.
Oh.
It should be It should be fairly
interesting.
obvious.
Okay.
If not, if you don't see that, check out the Paranormies with the show they did with Tim Murdoch called The N-Word. He goes into that more in depth. So definitely interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely
according to that
indeed.
theory, Neanderthal not good indeed, no less. So.
Yeah. The vampire and the werewolf thing. I don't know much about the I don't know much about the vampire and the werewolf thing. But yeah, seems like Neanderthal DNA is a definite rabbit hole.
Yeah, definitely is.
Maybe we could explore. I don't know enough about it to adequately explore it.
I haven't really looked into it that much. But I have people like Tim Murdoch to do that for me. So I basically listen to what they say about it. He doesn't conclude anything, but he looks into things and basically just present a hypothetical scenario seen from 10,000 feet, basically. So
Political maybe thinks that we're just the right amount of Neanderthal, and Didi thinks he's too pretty to be a Neanderthal.
We always hear about the Neanderthal and not of Cro-Magnon. Why is that? That is an interesting question.
Yeah, that is an interesting question indeed.
Because at least Europeans, I think, have more from Cro-Magnon than from the Neanderthal. So
yeah, that is true. But yeah, that's about all we've got time for tonight, folks.
That was what we had on Ogres for tonight. Next week, we decide on next week. Was it nightmares or dreams?
I think we found stuff for both. It could be dreams and nightmares, because they both crop up. General sleep related dream world things. So yeah, that should be a good one, because we've already found some stuff for that.
Yeah, we have.
Nice.
So I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday, what is left of it, depending on where you are. Political, I think you are on Monday, so have a good Monday, and you all have a good week, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Oh. Ferocious Chihuahua thinks we kick
thank you.
ass. That's good. Thank you.
So...
Okay, I will wake up for 3 a.m. dreaming nightmare tales. Lol.
Oh, that's early.
3 a.m.
Might have problems getting back to sleep
That is.
after.
Yeah, especially if there were especially scary nightmare tales. But yes.
Okay, people. See you next week and have a lovely day
everyone.
or night. Bye.
Goodbye.